One rule for the powerful and another for the powerless. One rule for the rich and another for the poor. One rule for Democrats and another for Republicans, or different rules depending on one's race or ethnicity. To the contrary, we have only one rule. We follow the facts and apply the law in a way that respects the Constitution and protects civil liberties.
Attorney General Merrick Garland earlier today sounding off on what he says are attacks on the Justice Department, vowing it will not be used as a political weapon. And so begins a Thursday afternoon. I'm John Roberts in Washington. Hello, Sandra.
All right, we'll see where the next 2 hours takes us, John. Good to be with you. I'm Sandra Smith in New York, and this is America Reports. Garland calling attacks on the department dangerous and outrageous. But his address comes as allegations continue to pile up that the DOJ is being used to target conservatives.
From the reality of his department's actions, and we can go through the list I just made, John. You know, for starters, do you remember the attacks on the Supreme Court justices following the leak of Dobbs? The Department of Justice could have enforced the law against those people who were threatening, who were bullying, who were at their house. They chose not to. There was an assassination attempt on Brett Kavanaugh. That was 2 years ago. That still has not gone to trial. It doesn't go to trial until next year. But think of the speed in which they've pushed the Donald Trump stuff through. Clinics that all Black lives matter. They were the ones who were prosecuted under this Department of Justice. Department of Justice traditionally never prosecutes people who blow off congressional subpoenas. Guess what? This DOJ does, but only with respect to Donald Trump aides. Then, of course, the January 6th offenses. They are continuing to go after people who were at the Capitol that day, bringing untested and novel theories of law that the Supreme Court just said you can't bring a law that has to do with document shredding and evidence tampering against somebody who was part of the riot that day. And yet for months, we've gotten updates on that. So those are just some of the and of course, the fan favorite, the parents, the angry parents at school board meetings. This Department of Justice, under Attorney General Garland, had his National Security Division, which is a division that is typically used to investigate terrorism offenses, and to look at the parents who are upset at what their children were being taught and spoke and told at school at these board meetings. So those are just some of the examples of how this DOJ has been used in a way that people feel is very inappropriate with respect to conservatives.
So you say that Garland, says nice things, but what's going on in his department is something else. Does he know what's going on in his department?
Well, I think part of the problem, and this is something that I've criticized Attorney General Garland for in the past, is his use of special counsels. He has, I think, hidden behind these counsels and said, well, they're independently doing their job and they're going to look at Donald Trump and they're going to look at this and that. But the reality is when you are Attorney General, it is your job to make the tough calls. And the fact that this Department of Justice, and so one of the things he said today in the speech was that he came back to DOJ and restored norms. Well, with all due respect, Attorney General, prosecuting the former president of the United States, the possible future president of the United States, and your boss's political enemy is anything but normal. And people would say, oh, well, that's because Donald Trump defied norms and, he's the one to blame. The response to that is, whoa, whoa, whoa. Take a look at the kinds of cases that were brought against him. These were not open and shut situations. The majority of all of the cases that have been brought against Donald Trump, and anybody can look up this for themselves, not just at DOJ, but in the state legal systems as well, they are untested legal theories. They are basically twisting the law in ways that have never been done before in order to fit the facts to get the guy. I would say the only exception to that are I would say there are some obstruction issues at play in the classified documents case, but of course that case has been dismissed, at least for now. And so it is not normal to try to imprison the former leader of the free world by twisting the law and bringing untested theories of law against that person.
But supporters of Merrick Garland would say, wait a second here, the DOJ brought a prosecution, a robust prosecution against Senator Bob Menendez, a Democrat, who brought 2 prosecutions against Hunter Biden after that failed plea deal. But they're saying, look, he's got...
Bob Menendez literally had gold bars in his jacket pockets in his house. Like, it doesn't get more obvious than that. Hunter Biden failed to pay his taxes and wrote off, prostitutes and lavish spending as business expenses that weren't. This is easy. That case could have been brought in a week. And the only reason, and that's another example of this DOJ not acting appropriately, the only reason that plea deal, which was a joke of a plea deal, was brought because the whistleblowers exposed the special treatment that was being given to both Joe and Hunter Biden by this Department of Justice.
But just to play devil's advocate
Sure.
here, Robert Menendez had gold bars in his pocket in his closet. But Donald Trump had classified documents in a closet at Mar-a-Lago.
That's right. And so that's why I said that I think the only exception to these cases, I would say there are some obstruction issues at play in the classified documents. You know, Donald Trump didn't help himself at all in that case. He should have complied. It was easy. It was not a big deal. He made it much harder than he should have. Now the case is on appeal. But I will say, and this was the problem with going back to the special counsel issue. So what does Attorney General Garland do? He appoints a special counsel to look at Joe Biden with his classified document mishandling and Donald Trump. One special counsel says, well, you know, I think he's guilty, but his mental faculties are so poor that I'm not going to be able to get it over the finish line with the jury. I got to respect him for saying that. That was a hard thing to say. I think it took courage, actually, and he was right. That was wise. Meanwhile, Jack Smith has been ham-handed and incredibly...
However, he was off his game and he really fed into her.
She kept stating that she was here for the people, but I didn't necessarily feel that.
I'm kind of torn between the both.
I personally don't think anybody won the debate last night. The whole debate was pretty laughable.
I think Trump's got the policies that are solid.
Well, I thought it was a very good debate. I'm glad we had an opportunity to see the two of them go head to head.
Well, at a minimum, everyone has a reaction. Her way to North Carolina for her first campaign stop since the debate. New Fox Power rankings marking a major shift in two key states ahead of November. The forecast now showing Trump losing his edge in Georgia and North Carolina, giving Harris a lead in the overall forecast for the very first time. The two states moved from lean Republican to toss-up. Fox team coverage starts right now. We've got Katie Pavlich on where she sees this race heading. Next, Rich Edson on how the economy is weighing on voters. But first, Peter Ducey. He's live in Charlotte for us. Hey, Peter.
And Sandra, you can see here at the Bojangles Coliseum, it is empty, but it is early. There's a good line of people outside waiting to come in. They've had a playlist going for these folks. Lots of cheers anytime that a Taylor Swift song comes on. Campaign officials think that they've got a lot of momentum after the debate in Philadelphia against Donald Trump, and they are trying to keep it going with a new ad that features debate clips twice. And it was, once again, trending away from the Democrats when Joe Biden was the nominee, but it is now one of 7 states the Harris team thinks is part of their key to 270 electoral votes. Sandra.
Okay. All interesting stuff. Peter Ducey in Charlotte for us. Thank you. John?
They put a little bit of effort into that staging, I'd say. Voters still struggling to stay afloat in the Biden-Harris economy as inflation on key items like car insurance, electricity, housing, and groceries have all surged by double digits since January of 2021. And undecided voters say they did not hear what they needed to at the debate from Vice President Harris when it comes to the economy. Rich Edson, live at the White House for us today. Rich?
Good afternoon, John. We continue getting inflation data. This morning, we saw wholesale prices up 1.7% in August compared to a year ago. The White House says a lot of this data coming in shows that they're rounding the corner on inflation. Consumer prices, what you and I pay, up 2.5% last month compared to a year earlier. That's the smallest increase since early 2021. Democrats say President Biden, Vice President Harris are fighting to lower costs, proposing middle-class small business tax cuts, while Republicans, they say, are focused on cutting taxes for the ultra-wealthy.
If you look at the record, Kamala Harris has a much stronger record and vision for our economy. And yes, that's a challenge for us to connect with the average voter, remind them of the chaos Donald Trump caused and the progress we've seen under the Biden-Harris administration.
Now, on that debate, the New York Times reports that while pundits say Harris won the debate, undecided voters weren't so sure, that they want more details from her, especially on the economy. Republicans say Harris can't hide from the data, with widespread inflation across the economy since 2021.
I'm running myself, and you can feel all the ebbs and flows of it. But when it comes down to what's most important to most Americans, it's the economy and inflation, and there's no way she can spin it.
Governor Burgum, not the only Republican pointed to Harris's voting. Minority Leader Mitch McConnell brought up the VP's tie-breaking vote in 2021 for that nearly $2 trillion American Rescue Plan that Republicans blame for adding to inflation. The Biden administration says that spending helped avoid the economic consequences, or more economic consequences, from the pandemic. John?
All right, well, President Biden recently acknowledged that it was misnamed, that it should have been talking more about energy than anything else. Rich Edson for us at 1600 Pennsylvania. Rich, thank you. Watch this.
We're having an earthquake right now. Whoa! We are, whoa. Okay, so we're staying on, we're here, that is an earthquake that we just experienced.
That's still going.
That's still going.
It was a long one and quite a shock for many Californians this morning as a magnitude 4.7 earthquake hit. The U.S. Geological Survey says it originated more than 4 miles north of Malibu, but residents from Orange County and along the coast report feeling the impact. So far, no injuries or damage, thankfully, has been reported.
Really kind of shook the area up, though. Live look at Capitol Hill, where the acting director of the Secret Service is meeting with lawmakers behind closed doors. Will they learn any new information about the assassination attempt on former President Trump? Paul Morrow and Trey Gowdy will join us to break down the briefing just ahead.
To that, plus House Speaker Johnson pulls a planned vote on a government funding bill, which includes a bill calling for proof of U.S. citizenship to vote. Will he be able to get that passed? Well, ask Jason Chaffetz and David Carlucci. They are up next here in the New York studio.
Why does Chuck Schumer, why is he so afraid of the SAVE Act? Why does he not put this up for a vote? They think that's going to happen.
Bond has resigned. The move comes several days after federal agents raided his home as part of a corruption probe. CB Cotton is live in our New York City newsroom. He'd been under pressure for days to pull the ripcord, and today he did, CB.
Hi, John. That's right. Well, Mayor Eric Adams announcing the NYPD commissioner's resignation moments ago, coming exactly a week after Caban's phones and other electronic devices were seized as federal investigators reportedly look into possible influence peddling tied to his brother, James Caban. Now, the New York Post reports that James may have tried to profit off of his family connection by selling consulting services to nightclubs that would protect them from police scrutiny. Caban writing in his resignation letter to safety of the men and women of the NYPD. Now get this, there are 3 other separate ongoing federal investigations tied to people within Mayor Eric Adams' circle. One, examining the mayor's campaign fundraising. Last November, federal agents seized the mayor's phone and iPad as he left a Manhattan event. And this summer, Adams and several others tied to his 2021 campaign were subpoenaed. Adams, he denies any wrongdoing. And today, he says his focus remains undeterred.
Every member of the administration knows my expectations that we must follow the law. I also made clear that our administration will remain focused on delivering for the people of our great city.
So Caban's attorney issuing a statement just now saying they've been assured by the federal government he is not the target of the investigation. In total, at least 8 top aides to Adams have been served subpoenas and search warrants this year. John.
All right, and they've tapped Tom Donilon to be the interim police commissioner. He was Barack Obama's former national security advisor. We will see where all of this goes in the days and weeks ahead. CB Cotton for us. CB, thank you. Sandra?
Thanks, John. House Speaker Mike Johnson forced to delay a House vote on his plan to prevent a government shutdown after a handful of Republicans pushed back on his plan. Johnson originally wanted to move forward with the measure and pair it with one that mandates proof of citizenship. Johnson originally wanted to move forward with the measure and pair it with one that mandates proof of citizenship to vote. Let's bring in our panel. Jason Chaffetz is a former Utah congressman, a Fox News contributor, and David Carlucci is a former Democratic New York State senator. I know you have some pretty strong thoughts on this, David. So considering Jason's right here to respond to you, tee this up for us. This sounds pretty reasonable to American voters.
Well,
why would you be against it?
The SAVE Act, for many reasons, because it's in search of a problem without a solution. Look, the idea that there's rampant voter fraud is just nonsense. It's like, it reminds me of Donald Trump on the debate stage the other night talking about the fear of pets being eaten by illegal immigrants. What they're going to do next is attach an amendment to the SAVE Act that will require you to lock up your pets because illegal immigrants are going to eat them. That's the nonsense here. It's stirring this doubt. It's looking for a backdoor when Donald Trump loses.
Time out. There have been thousands of instances where people have been found to have done this.
Even the Heritage Foundation has kept a log of these and has not had thousands.
Jason,
you can go look at Texas, and you can start looking at these other states that are now in the process of doing this. And Democrats will say, oh, there's no threat here, it's in search of a problem. Then why not do it? Why not make extra?
Because there's a lot of people that don't carry their passport or birth certificate around. How are you going to prove proof of citizenship?
So here's
do you have that on you right now? Because a driver's license won't do.
It will if when you got your driver's license, you had to show that you were born in the United States of America.
We haven't
Utah,
done that.
You have to do
we
that.
Don't do that.
So,
okay. Let me get Speaker Mike Johnson's voice back in here because he went on with Maria and he stressed the importance of this act and said this.
We know for a fact non-citizens are registered to vote in so many states around the country. We have to solve this problem. The last train leaving the station is the CR, the continuing resolution. I have a colleague here that won her first race in 2020 by 6 votes. We have colleagues, many that have won their races by just a couple hundred votes.
So interesting, David, that there are 5 House Democrats who say they are for this. They voted for the SAVE Act when it was put up for vote in July. These are the 5 of them: Henry Cuellar and Vincent Gonzalez. Obviously, those are reps from Texas. Jared Golden of Maine, Don Davis, North Carolina, and Marie Gluesenkamp Perez from Washington.
Democrats aren't afraid to cross the aisle, and I think they've shown that time and time again. We had the opportunity to finally do something about the border, have immigration reform.
No, you're changing this subject.
No,
you're
it's the same thing.
No,
it's about bipartisan.
It's
about the ability to get something done. Democrats want to solve problems.
No, you don't.
Republicans don't. There's not a problem here. It's not about
David.
We need more people voting.
You do not want to solve this problem, and it is a problem.
Where is the problem?
Hold on. 198 Democrats said, no, you shouldn't have proofs of citizenship. 10 million people into this country illegally. Don't tell me that there isn't a problem that nobody is registered to vote that is illegal.
I think the Republicans are desperate to talk about the problem. You want to articulate a problem, not find a solution. So if it is true that there are registered voters that are illegal residents or not citizens, then do something about that.
How you respond
Don't make all of us have to go through hoops and jump through these windows.
David, you got to let other people talk eventually. Okay, so I'm curious how you respond to Minority Leader Jeffries trying to tie the SAVE Act to Project 2025, which Trump has disavowed, but Democrats keep saying that he's pushing it and all for it. Well, let's listen here.
Extreme MAGA Republicans want to shut down the government because they are determined to jam Trump's Project 2025 down the throats of the American people. Constitution does not permit non-citizens to vote, period, full stop. Extreme MAGA Republicans have zero credibility and zero legitimacy when it comes to free and fair elections.
Since, David, Democrats seem so in favor of fact-checking, why do they keep pushing this? Kamala Harris even says this on her own campaign website, and Trump said he doesn't even know what it is. He's disavowed it.
Well, because he said a lot of things that we've proven have been faulty.
Okay, so you don't want to take him at his word.
No, but look, Project 2025, we've seen so many people that have worked closely with Donald Trump be involved in that. He was in front of the Heritage Foundation. He said that he would be looking for them to write up this stuff. We have it on record. We know that. But his policies are very scant. And so he's leaning on Project 2025. It's a good foundation to know this. I mean, is he going to disavow everything? Look at the abortion issue.
Who's leaning on Project
Let's talk about the abortion. He's been flip-flopping back and forth. He couldn't even answer.
You got to stop, David. You're talking over everybody. You got to let other people speak.
I'm waiting.
Who keeps pushing it? Who keeps pushing Project 2025?
Well, everyone around Donald Trump's atmosphere, the people involved in these things.
Everyone around Donald Trump's atmosphere.
Well, just like you're saying, all these illegal voters. I mean,
you got to let Jason speak. Go.
David, it is common sense to have somebody show proof of citizenship in order to get a ballot. That's the way it should be in America. You can argue with the American people all day long and tell them that, oh, we trust everybody, but that is fundamentally not right. The integrity of the vote is far more superior than your inconvenience of having to show a birth certificate to get your
Harris. Let's bring in Katie Pavlich, editor of townhall.com and a Fox News contributor. Some new data has just come to us. Reuters found 10 undecided voters who were undecided before the debate and then surveyed them afterwards. Here's what the results of the survey were. 6 of those 10 undecideds now say that they're either going for Trump or they're leaning toward him. 3 have decided to go with Harris. 1 continues to be undecided. 5 people said that Harris was too.
That is fascinating information that we're seeing across the board with these undecided voters, especially in swing states. But the bar that Kamala Harris had to meet during the debate was convincing people that her vague plans for the economy, without a lot of specifics, including dodging the first question of the debate, which was, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago, is that her vague plans for the economy are better than the tangible, concrete experience American voters had 4 years ago, or 8 years ago now, when Donald Trump was in office. How much things cost? Could they still afford what they were trying to pay for? Was it harder to pay the bills every month on basic items like electricity, car insurance, groceries? And so she does need some more detailed plans about how she's going to be better than President Trump in terms of making Americans. People know how much their bills were, and they can do math. And so the Harris campaign has a lot of work to do on the very issue of the economy, which is #1 and continues to be to Election Day.
Another thing a lot of people are talking about is the fact that Donald Trump was fact-checked at every turn, and yet Kamala Harris was not fact-checked at all. New York Post has got a very interesting article out today that talks about the lack of fact-check. It says she was not fact-checked on her claim that there are no active duty military members in a combat zone. There are plenty of them. Trump plans on implementing Project 2025 if elected. No, that's not his plan. It's the Heritage Foundation. Trump called for the execution of the Central Park 5 in a New York Times ad. He did not. Touted new leases for fracking in the Inflation Reduction Act, despite regulation undermining the lease promises, and no fact check on that there are no women in America carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for abortion. In Minnesota, before they changed the law, there were 5 women who had abortions that resulted in a live birth. And then took Trump's Charlottesville comments out of context, forgot to add the part that neo-Nazis and white supremacists, I denounced them out of turn, but in that argument over the statue, there were good people making good arguments on both sides.
The thing that caught my eye the most was the lack of the pushback on the claim that there are not U.S. troops in combat or war zones all around the world.
How many naval ships do we have in the Persian Gulf?
How many naval ships do we have in the Red Sea who have been attacked over the course of the past 12 months by Iranian-backed Houthi rebels, shutting down a number of commercial shipping
American
there?
service members killed in Jordan?
Exactly. The number, of course, the president is in charge of the economy and big plans, and they want to reduce inflation, and they want to make sure housing is affordable. But the #1 job of the commander-in-chief is to make sure that the American people are safe and to command the U.S. military. So for a candidate to stand up and make that claim that there are no U.S. troops in harm's way in combat or war zones, and the language was very slippery there, was a pretty astonishing thing to hear from someone who's going to be in charge of the U.S. military.
The other thing that wasn't fact-checked was her bloodbath claim. Trump didn't say there was going to be a bloodbath if Joe Biden, just generally, if Joe Biden was reelected. It was specifically talking about the auto industry and imports from Mexico. Now, Trump got it wrong. Trump fact-checked Harris, but he got it wrong. He said it was about energy. When he was talking about it, he said that all these imports are coming in from Mexico. I'll end that, but if Biden is reelected, it'll be a bloodbath.
Well, and look, if you're going to fact-check candidates, that's fine, but you have to do it on both sides to have an equal opportunity debate. And on the issue of the bloodbath comment, when it comes to the auto industry, there was very little talk, both in the U.S. Senate and as vice president under Joe Biden, and how that would affect the auto industry and workers in places like Michigan. And so that is something that wasn't brought up in the context of that false statement.
Yeah, and how about the idea that she's on camera several times saying, I will end fracking, end fossil fuels. And the Inflation Reduction Act did have some fracking included in it, but far less than would have been included.
Yeah, exactly.
And normally. All right. Katie, great to talk to you.
Great to
Thanks
see you,
for breaking it all
Thank
down
you.
for us. Appreciate it. Sandra?
All right, John, to Capitol Hill now. We're acting.
Hello, xin chào mọi người đã đến với kênh YouTube của mình. Hôm nay mình sẽ hướng dẫn mọi người tò mò nhé. Hôm nay mình sẽ hướng dẫn mọi người tô màu này nha. Ngân ơi chị mượn khẩu river. Trả đây. Trả đây. Con xét nó vừa lấy súng. hỏi chấm giật cả mình. Nó lấy văn đồ rồi. Ôi, một đống smoke. TP. Không, 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 không. Don't pick, don't pick, don't pick. À. Kia, kia, kia. Một Ida yếu lắm rồi á. Cay vai. Em mua ốp à? Em mua ốp à? Xét. Cái cô ơi drop tớ. Ôi, thank you. Khỏi. Con đeo ông lại phi vào đây xem này. Ơ, spy đây mà. Spy đây mà. Spy ở đây mà. Con đi ông cứ cầm spy chạy trước không rồi chết đầu ấy. Nó chuẩn bị lao vào ấy. Chuẩn bị lao vào. Flank, chamber flank. Chamber flank. Hay. Ngon. Đây là bức tranh mà mình đã vừa tô được một nửa nha mọi người. Mình sẽ hoàn thiện nốt phần phía bên dưới này rồi sẽ cho mọi người xem kết quả của cái video nên mọi người theo dõi mình nha. Trời ơi. Chết rồi, smoke hở.